everyone. I am here. It's 3 o'clock in the US and I think it's 8 o'clock in the UK, right? Because this is everyone in the UK gets a chance sometimes to not have to get up at, what would it be, 1 in the morning to hang out. And I'm seeing more people here than I thought from the US, especially teachers like you, Annie. Is it because of Yom Kippur? And do tell me if it's Yom Kippur. Lisa says, still waking up here in the down under. Oh, that is too early for you. I'm sorry. I have to plan something for you one day. So it's going to be like, Lisa, I'm going to get up at 1 in the morning myself, and then you can hang out without all the torture. So, Annie, are you out there? So can you tell me, are you off school today? Not working because of Yom Kippur? And can you all hear me, or am I talking to myself? I want to make sure that you can see and hear me. Looks like you should be able to, but somebody say something. Everybody, can you see and hear me? All righty. Okay, very good. Okay, so it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon here, and it's weird because it's a weekday, and up till now I've always been teaching my granddaughter during the week, and now she's not at school today because it's Yom Kippur, but she's apparently with Dad, and I don't have to do hi, Annie. Are you off, Annie? Tell me, are you off of school today because of the holiday? It's kind of funny because I never thought about Yom Kippur as a holiday in my area, because I think there's like one Jewish person who lives out this way. And in the next county, it's heavily Jewish, but in this county where I live, it's like one person. And probably all the kids are going, Yom Kippur? Huh? Really? You didn't have that holiday in Ohio? Really? Okay. Interesting. But are you just home from school already? Because I didn't think you'd actually get here at this time of the day. So I'm glad to see you, Annie. That's really great. I get off at 2:45. Oh, really? Wow. You must live pretty close to your school then. That's cool. All right. This is neat. A lot more people here that I thought would be here because of the 3 o'clock in the afternoon hour. So that's really nice. So anyway, I'm going to double check to see if anybody ever sent me some questions, which they did not give me questions ahead of time. So you better come up with some so that you can see if I can answer anything. But I do have some things to talk about because some interesting things have happened this week. I just want to mention some of the news stuff. How many of you heard the story about the couple that there was a couple and their daughter and their dog? I think it was a dog, yeah. And they went to the Sierra National Forest, and then they all ended up dead on the trail, just sort of lying there on the trail. And nobody knows what happened to them. And they didn't find any particular signs of any, on their bodies of any kind of assault or anything, but they're all just lying there. And they're waiting for a toxicology report, and that seems to be a reasonable thing to do because, hold on, wait a minute, I got to get the elephant out of my head. Elephant trunk behind me there. It's a little better. And they're just lying around, and they look like a happy couple, little girl. They're just cute, and the dog's there, and the dog's dead too, which is so weird. So they're waiting for the toxicology report. Still hasn't come back in. But they're speculating maybe they were hit by lightning. And I would have thought there'd be signs if 4 of them died from a lightning strike. One would I don't think is he British? I don't know. Yeah, they were out hiking in the U.S. in the West. So they were. Let me see if I can find out who they were. Jonathan Garish, Ellen Chung, their toddler Miju, and their canine companion Oxy. They were found by rescue workers. They were dead on the Savage Lundy Trail in the Sierra National Forest, and just haven't figured out. Yeah, they're all mysteriously dead. That is for sure, Carolina. Yeah, that is true. So the question is, now they're saying maybe it was a lightning strike. And I just thought that was odd because you would think there'd be some signs of when you're getting hit by a lightning strike of some sort. But I do want to just point to something to you because we're going to wait. It's always good to wait when you have no idea really to make, there's a lot of people out there already going, oh my God, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. But we just don't know. But there's a really interesting video. I just think you just want to look at it. I showed this to my granddaughter, not to scare the devil out of her, but just to say, don't stand under a tree. So in this video, if you put in India students lightning, I think it was in Mumbai. So if you put that in, you will see this, it's raining. And then there's this big tall tree. And so like 7 students, they're like just standing under the tree, all looking just normal. And all of a sudden, the lightning hits the tree. And then you see all 7 of them just drop to the ground and not move again. As the creepiest thing, it's like, holy crap. I mean, after the lightning strike, they're still standing, but then they go. I think 6 fall first, and then one guy's a little slower, all dead on one lightning strike that hit a tree. So that is kind of how fatal it can be. But I don't know, the autopsy report did not come up with anything, which I just think is a little strange if it were a lightning strike. So we'll have to wait on the toxicology report and see whether that says anything. I mean, it would. They talked about maybe some poisonous algae in the area or something in the air, like a gas, something. I mean, I've never heard of anything like that. I mean, the other choices, like one of them decided to kill the whole family, and then they all took poison and then poisoned the dog. I mean, okay, but then you would think. Here's what you would think: if you brought poison with you to poison your family, when you die, you don't get rid of the poison bottle. Whatever you've got the poison in is still probably there, unless you all, I don't know, ate mushrooms and, but then you'd have people like maybe throwing up and convulsing. So you think you'd see some evidence of something that caused their deaths. So we're just going to have to wait and see what they have to say. But it really is a really strange case. Another strange case right now is the case of Gabby Petito. She is the one in Utah where she went on this trip with her boyfriend in a van. They had converted a van and they were going to do a YouTube thing. And the reason I think it's interesting is that if you go to YouTube, there's only one video. They got one video done before all went to hell. And you see this couple in the video and they're adorable. They are adorable. She's cute. He's cute. They're cute together. And I've watched a number of, travel videos, and usually when you're going traveling with somebody around the world, you better be on good terms. You better get along really well because you're spending a lot of time together in isolation, away from families, away from other friends, and you got to have good personalities and get along. And so anyway, they went on this thing. They did this one video, and then the boyfriend, and his name is Brian Laundrie. Well, when I read one of these things, I read that the laundry came home. I'm like, why is he sending the laundry home? I'm like, oh no, the guy's name is Laundry. So after they've been gone, like I guess they roughly 2 weeks. Let me see what it was. Utah police have confirmed that officers were called for an incident involving Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito roughly 2 weeks before she was last seen and a month before she was officially reported missing. So what happened is he came home with the van. He didn't leave the van. He came home with the van, but without her, and supposedly has not cooperated with the police. And what's interesting about this, if you go and you look up this police incident, there they are again. The picture. Oh my God, they're just so freaking cute. Look, aren't they cute? They're cute. Couple is cute. But they had this incident and they didn't call the police. Somebody called the police and said, these two are arguing. And they called the police to see what the police could do. And she tells a story, and you can see it on the video, where she's like, says, I'm very OCD. And I was like getting like a kind of crazy. And he was like, no, why don't we just stop? And she's crying and acting all. So in a way, you see him as the calm one and her as the one that's kind of got issues, and if she's got OCD and she's driving him nutty in the van, now you begin to wonder. So anyway, the police came, they didn't charge anybody, but they took a overnight break from each other. So one of them stayed in the van, and one of them went and stayed in a motel for the night. And then they got back together, and then it was Gabby's van. Something happened, I think, and he ran home to mom and dad. That's what Carolina says. Well, yeah, that does probably seem what it is. There's an interesting thing about missing people. There's two reasons people go missing. One is they choose to go missing, and unless they're very clever about it, usually they're found or they show up someplace eventually. But sometimes they can disappear pretty well, and then the remaining person gets accused of killing them because nobody has seen them since. So theoretically, Brian could have, she could have gone wacko on him and said, I'm done. And she ran off and left him with the van. And he's like, I don't know where she went to. And he goes home. Now, he isn't cooperating with the police, so I think that might not have happened. So maybe they continued on their way, and somewhere along the way, he got frustrated with her, angry with her, whatever. Maybe he's abusive and we don't know it. Because just because he's cute and she looks OCD and kind of a little, high strung, doesn't mean that hasn't got some issues himself. So maybe they got into another fight and he did something to her, hit her, strangled her, who knows what. And then he dumped her body somewhere in where were they? Oh yeah, where were they? Desert? Somewhere, let's see exactly what. Okay, okay. Her mother says her mother reported her missing on September 11th, but they had last spoken in the final week of August, and she was last seen in the Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. Nothing like a wild area to get rid of bodies. So, you're already in the van, unless you killed her in the van, and the dogs will hit on it, like a cadaver thing going, there's blood in there, they find blood in the van with luminol. Let's say he killed her outside the van, strangling her, and it was in an isolated area. And maybe he even decides, I'm not putting her back in the van and carrying her off. It's already an isolated area. So we pulled off at this picnic table, and nobody was around. It's completely isolated. And I got in a fight with her, knocked her off, and now all I have to do is carry her down a hill and into a gully, into a ditch somewhere, and hide her. Because nobody is probably going to find her body for a really long time. So now, if he's watched enough true crime shows, he will say to himself, what's my, I got the itchy nose again. Why is that? I think it's the lights. What should I do? Now, if he's really smart, if there's no evidence in the vehicle, and he's hidden her body someplace in the middle of some forest, you get in the vehicle and you come back and you say, and you just don't cooperate. Or you can say, I don't know, she just walked away. And I waited, she didn't come back. And then I say, why didn't you call the police? And then you got a problem. So you just don't cooperate. Now, what happens when you don't cooperate? What evidence do you have that he did something to her? And the only evidence you have is she's missing. But she's missing is not evidence of a homicide. She's missing. You can say you're a bad guy. Maybe she walked away and he just said, screw you, and just returned home. Ha ha. Is he guilty of anything? If she did walk away and he decided to go away, we all may think it's not the right thing to do, but can you charge somebody with something? So unless you got a body or she shows up, it's hard to say this is what happened if there's no other evidence that anything happened. So like many cases that I've talked about recently, unless you have the body, you often have a piece of the puzzle that's missing, and the remaining pieces of the puzzle aren't enough to charge somebody with. So we're going to have to wait and see whether anybody can figure out where this girl is. And unfortunately, again, she's, if they were driving through a huge national park, she could be anywhere. I mean, anywhere. He could have pulled over, any picnic spot they could have had an argument at. They could have pulled off on the side of the road because they were having an argument. She could have jumped out of the car on the side of the road, and he just drove away. She wandered into the woods and got hypothermia and died. I mean, we don't know, and that's the problem. I mean, he should have called the police immediately when she went missing. But he didn't, but you still have to prove he did something wrong, not just he was a louse. So going to be interesting to see what happens with that case. Now, the other one I thought I'd talk about is Murdaugh. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Murdaugh. I look at it, it's written as Murdaugh, but it's really Murdaugh. And he's the guy in North Carolina. Let me be sure I got the right place here. Is it North Carolina? Oh, it's crashing on your end? Martin says, the stream has crashed for me a couple of times, but when I refresh it, it comes back fine. Just saying this in case anyone else is having this. Is anybody else having that problem? Because I'm plugged into the internet. South Carolina. Thank you, Carolina. Yeah, if anybody else is having that problem, yeah, it's always hard to tell whether it's on one, out my end or your end, or, and sometimes you just, So if anybody else is having the problem, let me know so that I know that it's from here. You're fine for me, no problems. Martin, I don't know. Are you plugged into the internet or are you wireless? Because I certainly know that wireless sometimes causes it to go bonkers. And I always plug in when I do the shows because that way, at least I can ensure theoretically the best quality. Okay, South Carolina. Yeah, so Murdaugh, this dude, it's been a really bizarre case because Alex Murdaugh, he is for anybody who doesn't know this case, I'm not going to do anything deep on it, but it's just happened, so it's just so bizarre. So Alex Murdaugh is let me just go back to the beginning so I can tell you who he is exactly. He is and it says basically here, for 87 years, the Murdaugh family name came to represent a legal dynasty in coastal South Carolina, where they controlled the local prosecutor's office. But in recent years, the family has been closely connected to bloody tragedy. There was a fatal boating crash in 2019, and the killings of 2 family members in June, and the shooting of a family member last week, and allegations of misappropriated funds and drug use. so that family's got issues. So, in other words, the boat crash, the man that in the picture right now is Alex Murdaugh, and he is Paul Murdaugh, sorry. So Paul Murdaugh, his son caused a crash and accident, I believe. He's the one that caused the boat accident. And yeah, it's just so much going on. And then later, Paul Murdaugh, sorry, that was Paul Murdaugh. There's too many people here. Alex Murdaugh, the son of, let me get it straight. Alex Murdaugh. Now Carolina says, just seeing you and not any pictures. What? That is so weird. I have absolutely no idea. It's live on this end. I just see Pat and the table behind you. Oh no, there's no pictures. Oh, no, I'm not showing any pictures. Oh no, Carolina, when I do these talks, I don't show pictures. I mean, I have to do this. Look at this. This is done through YouTube, and I don't even know how you show pictures on this particular setup. When I do the Sunday thing, yeah, on Sunday, I have pictures I can put up, and I have a green screen behind me so I can show different elements of the crime scenes. That's done on over there where my green screen is. I'll show it to you, as a matter of fact. I'll turn it. See the green screen? There's the green screen over there. So that's the green screen. That's Sunday. This is just Hangout in my house and have the elephant behind me. So no, you're not going to see anything. It's just going to be just me. But anyway, I'm trying. The Murdaugh family is so okay. So it's Alex Murdaugh. This whole thing is rolling around. So his son basically caused a boat crash in 2019. Then in June, his wife and son get shot. And that. So who was the one that caused the boat crash? I can't even keep up with this. So Paul is the one. Okay, Paul caused the boat crash, and then in June, Alex's wife and that son Paul got shot to death at the home. But Alex survived. He found them there, And now what happened was it was just, was it June? He supposedly was driving down the highway and some trucker shot him shot him, and it ended up only grazing his head, and he survived. And now it's turned out that he's turned himself in because he hired a hitman to kill him to leave supposedly the $10 million insurance policy to the one remaining son. And he's also got opioid problems, and he also stole money from his firm. So not such a great guy. So this, you've got, apparently what we have here is a person who's had a tremendous amount of power and prominence over a number of years. And sometimes what happens in these particular families is that they have too much money, they have too much power, they have too much, I can do what I want to do. Sometimes they like to get great levels of excitement because they want to do all the cool things, flying planes, boating, whatever it is. They like to do all kinds of exciting things, and not necessarily with the best of thinking sometimes drunk, or sometimes just they're so hyped up they don't care if they do drive at 120 miles down the street. We see this a lot of times with families who have a lot of money and a lot of power. And we also see this sometimes in the Hollywood group too. People who they just, life is, they have so much excitement in life. They get so many adrenaline rushes that they ratchet up adrenaline rushes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And sometimes in doing so, they lose control of being sensible people. They start thinking they can get away with stuff they shouldn't think they can get away with. They start doing drugs because they have the money to pay for it, or the pressures of their life get to them. So they get this messed up lifestyle, and then sometimes really do a lot of terrible things. But I'm not going to get into this case, but I wanted to point out too that since I talked about family annihilators last week, the Bamber case and the Bain case. Now we have a guy here, and the question is, did he murder his wife and son? Is he also a family annihilator, as opposed to being, a guy whose son had an unfortunate accident, and then, oh my God, I was in this terrible, my wife and son got killed. I wonder who did it. And then, and now that though he's hired a hitman to kill himself, that kind of puts a wrench in it. I think his idea was if a hitman kills him, then everything's exonerated. In other words, someone's out to get the whole family, and then the remaining child gets the money. But then, was anybody out to get the whole family? Now that he's been exposed as hiring the hitman to kill him, is he really a family annihilator? Was he the one that killed his wife and son? So it's going to be interesting to see. Carolina. Can you type for me, Carolina with E-E-N-A, or just put your name Carolina with an I, so I know which way to pronounce it, because I keep thinking I'm pronouncing your name wrong and it's bugging me. I don't know if it's Carolina or Carolina. You write that the Murdaugh wife and son, Paul, were shot with 2 different weapons. So do you think there were 2 assailants? It's like North Carolina. Okay, that's a good way to look at it. So Carolina, I'll try to remember that so I don't call you Carolina. Carolina. Well, the interesting about the 2 assailants was it, he hired this creepy hitman dude who was obviously really shitty at his job. I mean, he gets shot partially, just grazes his head. I mean, how much of a rush do you need if you want to get shot? Just sit there, let the guy aim at you, let him blow you away, and that's that. I mean, do you do a fake hit so badly that you don't even do the job right? So I'm thinking he hired a real loser. And here's an interesting problem. And I don't mean the loser necessarily killed both the wife and son, but he could have brought the loser along, and then they could have both shot the wife and son. Or maybe he does have 2 weapons and he shot them himself. I don't know yet. But the loser dude, I mean, you can hire a professional hitman, or you can hire some guy you knew. Like, like some guy you met on a fishing trip, or some guy who fixes your car, and you go, and it's amazing how they'll do it. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, thank you for, oh, my car's running real good now. By the way, could you kill my wife? Oh, could you shoot me?" The hitman was actually his cousin. Okay, there we go. Carolina has the information. I haven't actually looked into this case, so I'm just talking for fun today. The hitman was actually his cousin and also his drug dealer. Well, there you go. Loser dude, right? Loser dude. Okay, so that is interesting. So I may have to do a full thing on this case and actually read all about it. But also, Alex represented this hitman as his lawyer. Well, there, yeah. Here's the thing. It's amazing how people hire incompetent people to do probably the most important job they'd ever hire somebody to do. Carolina says, new Murdaugh news every hour, it seems. Yeah, I mean, I just saw this. I just got word of this. That's why I haven't researched it. Somebody just wrote me and said, hey, did you see the Murdaugh stuff? I'm like, no. Oh, okay. Let me take a look, because I hadn't really been, watching all of it. But yeah, you're going to hire. The thing is, if you're going to hire a real hitman, where do you get a real hitman? I mean, I don't know. Does anybody here? I'll have to keep this in writing in case somebody in your family gets shot to death. But does anybody here just happen to know the conduit to getting a real hitman? Somebody who knows how to do this? Yeah, I don't think anybody here has got that ability. We don't know people at all. So then the problem comes in. You want this done. You want to go to somebody who's not going to rat you out. And so apparently, as Carolina said, well, if that was his cousin, his drug dealer, and he's already represented him, the guy's a slime bag. The guy is a creepy slime bag. But he's creepy enough to want to make some money, right? So Christine says, I'll have to Google that. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Remember what I said last week? The problem people have before they commit a crime is they're not ready to commit the crime. So they start Googling the idea, like, how do I hire a hitman? How do I get insurance money? And then, or how do I kill my family? Or Casey Anthony, chloroform. And people do that. And then what happens is a couple months goes by and they go, I'm going to do that. But they don't remember they searched on Google for all the things they're interested in. And when they look through their computer later, that's what they find. And it's like, don't do that. So if you're going to hire a hitman, you want to have some way to get a professional hitman that doesn't involve looking it up on the internet or letting the word out so that a police officer shows up and poses as a hit person, And I know cases just like that recently in Maryland. And that's what the guy who wanted to kill off his wife, and he talked to the guy, and they gave him like lots and lots of chances. It's like, are you sure you're not just fooling me? No, dude, I want you to do it. Okay, so when do you want me to do this? And they went over and over. Are you sure you want me to do this? And the guy insisted, and they ended up, he ended up getting arrested and charged with attempted, assassination of his wife. And but he talked to this police officer, I don't know how many times, he was posing as a hitman. So, so when you're going to find somebody, it's hard. So if you've got the creepy cousin hanging out, Annie Haley says, dark web. Annie, what do you know about the dark web? That is one place. So anyway, yeah, so if you've got the creepy cousin who's willing to do it, the problem is a lot of times they are idiots, and you're hired an incompetent person to do things. And that's why things go wrong. And what you think should be a good plan, and you're like, why would they do this so badly? Well, it's because the guy's got no experience, and he's an idiot, and who knows what else. So it's kind of amusing. Martin says, yes, Tor browser and dark web. I'm keeping you all in mind. But Lisa says, yes, please cover this case. So interesting when someone with money and power spins out of control and makes everything worse when they try to do damage control. Yeah, and I have to really take, Annie says, I know nothing. That's why I like you, Annie, because I know you're never going to give up my secrets, right, Annie? You know nothing. But yeah, I will. At least I will take a. I really have to spend some time on this case because it's this long history of all kinds of stuff, and I do find it interesting to find out where it goes wrong. And I want to point out the one thing I forgot to point out. Family annihilators, there's 4 groups of them. The young girl who wants to get rid of her parents to go off with a boyfriend. The young male who's late teen, early teen, just wants his whole family gone because they just get on his nerves and they're in his way. Then you get the guy who kills his wife and children because wants to run off with a stripper. He's usually about 30-ish. Then you get midlife crisis family annihilators. That would be this guy. If this guy is guilty of killing his wife and son, that would be this guy. He has reached a point in his life where it's going to hell. In other words, he was doing okay. He was moving up, living a pretty good life. And then, he started getting into drugs. He started stealing money. He's falling apart, completely falling apart. And those are the guys that want to annihilate their family so they're like, either because they don't want their family to see what they've done. Maybe because they know they're going to go to jail if they survive. Maybe it's because they just don't want to live anymore themselves. Who knows? I mean, it's really hard to say exactly what's going through their head, but usually it's, my life has turned to shit and I'm not going anywhere. So they annihilate their families, or they're mass murderers at that age. So that's the guy who walks into his place of employment, shoots everybody up. And you go, well, why did he do that? Well, because he's 45. He's not getting any promotions. And he's like, this is it. This is the best I'm going to do in life. And you all were all against me. My boss never liked me, blah, blah, blah. And so he goes and shoots everybody down because, what the hell? So those are the family annihilators. But yeah, Carolina says it's probably hard to kill someone than the guy thought it would be. That's a good point. He may not have actually killed anybody before. And he's thinking, I'm going to get this money. But when it came down to actually having to shoot somebody in the head, and he knew the dude too. I mean, this was his cousin, right? And he's like, damn, I'm not going to be able to use him as a lawyer anymore. Oh, oops, I missed. Who knows? Or just an idiot. There's idiots. That's not a psychiatric designation, but it should be, because a lot of times you look at crimes, there's a lot of idiots involved, and that's why they haven't done well in life, because they're idiots and they don't do smart things. They don't. Look at me. I'm sweating. See, Annie. Okay, I thought my air conditioning was working, Annie, and now I'm sweating so bad. I think maybe the air conditioning isn't working. Now I'm looking for my little teeny fan. Oh my God! Look at this. Yeah, okay, it's not working. I swear to God, it's not. Nope. I think it's not working. Maybe last night was just cold, and so I froze. But wow. Man, it is. So idiots. That should be a designation. It should be a defense. Your Honor, my client is an idiot. That's why he did what he did. He's an idiot. It's kind of a funny thing. Oh, here's a funny story, by the way. I heard this the other day, and actually, it's related to someone in a distant family relative, distant. So, and in the past, and I heard this and I'm like, that is so weird. And I have to look up the truth of this. Apparently this guy, well, I'll not give his name. I'll call him John. And he was married to Mary, those 2 easy names. And they had 3 kids. And so one day he went out for cigarettes or milk. I think maybe he went out for milk. The guy who goes out for cigarettes and never comes back is the usual story. So we'll say he went down I got to go get some cigarettes, huh? Goes down to the store, meets a woman in the store, and he decides, I like this one. And he says, you want to go off together? And she said, yes. He leaves with that woman, ends up marrying her. They have 3 more children. And he names those 3 children the same exact names as his other 3 children. I'm like, really? And I mean, I know a lot about guys who go get cigarettes and then vanish. That's been a very common story in history. And then the wife will wonder whatever happened to her husband. And then one day she'll find out he's got a second wife and a whole new life. And what amazes me about this kind of thing is, I kind of understand the family annihilator that gets rid of his wife and kids to go off and be a single guy again. It's like, I'm done with the family crap. It's a lot of work. The kids always want too much. My wife is turning into a nag. I just want out of this life. And I'm going to run off with a stripper, and have hot sex. And I don't have to deal with the family anymore. That I understand. But you go and repeat the exact same thing. You run away, you go get your cigarettes, run off with somebody else. Then you do the same thing. You marry her and have 3 more kids. What was the point? What was the point? Isn't that weird? I mean, and then I was having chat, and supposedly this thing where they name the next kids, the guys who do this, name the kids the same as the first kids, apparently is not unusual. Now, I just heard this story, so now I have to look this up. Do people just name them the same? I mean, it's freaky. It's like a clone family. It's like, what would make you do that? I mean, so very, very interesting. And I said I have to do some more studies on that, because that's first I've heard of the child naming thing. But it's just some really freaky stuff. The other thing I wanted to talk about today came from my show on Bamber, Jeremy Bamber in the UK. And I did the show, and I did that on Jeremy Bamber and David Bain. So if anybody who watches this who is not already here and watched it, please go and take a look at that. Family Annihilators. And I knew I was going to receive a lot of hate mail and angry stuff, which I did, because people are very divided. They either think the guys committed the crimes of killing their families, these are famous cases, or they think they're totally innocent. And David Bain was found guilty, but in an appeal after about 10 years, a new jury found him not guilty, and he then left New Zealand, moved to Australia, got married, and had kids. And a good portion of people in New Zealand still think he's guilty, and I still think he's guilty. And Jeremy Bamber was charged with annihilating his entire family in Essex in England, and he's been in jail for how long has he been in prison for? I forgot when it even happened. He's been in prison a long time, like 30 years now at least, so a long time. And he has a whole Jeremy Bamber's innocent side. He's got a huge team of lawyers trying to get appeals, and he's not succeeded. And so Lisa says yes to Bain being guilty, but at the least he's Australia's problem now. At the moment he is. Okay, hold on a second. I have to take a drink. Yeah. Let's see. It's interesting. Family annihilators usually don't repeat the crimes, which is one reason. No, Andy says rerun. I don't think so. This is what usually happens most of the time. Occasionally, it's not true. But when you have a guy who annihilates the whole family, it's rare that he repeats the exact same crime again. And because he doesn't do this, people who believe the person is innocent will say, well, see, there's no way he would go on and have a normal life and not kill anybody else. That means he's innocent. That does not mean he's innocent. That means that he knows if he commits that crime again, he's going to be in prison the rest of his life, or he'll have to kill himself, because 2 mass murders don't work. Now, he may, and he's also learned things. When you're in prison for a long time, you learn all kinds of manipulative techniques, and you can then find other ways to get thrills out of life, and also to do better out of life. So in other words, if you're 20-some years old when you commit this crime, and now you're 30-something or 50-something, you have learned techniques which you didn't have when you were 20. And so you're probably not going to commit the same type of crime again. You'll be manipulative still. You'll still be psychopathic. You'll still have other ways of doing things, but you're probably not going to annihilate the family. But it does not mean you're innocent. So anyway, I wanted to just point out, because most people aren't going to read this, and I thought it was really interesting because there was a gentleman who came through who believes in Jeremy Bamber's innocence, and he wrote some very detailed things to me about what he believes. And he said, so I just want to read a couple of these things. Let's see, where was this thing? Let me see where his first one is. Okay. He basically told me, because I was pointing out that much of the misinformation people get, much of the information is really misinformation that people get about somebody that has a big, huge innocence committee, or a whole group of people fighting for their innocence. What they do, this is how it works. You get somebody who wants to start this whole he's innocent routine. Then you start collecting a lot of money. The defense team gets a lot of money. So they're well financed. And then the media gets involved. So there's all kinds of, they get massive media, massive money, and a huge defense team. And so that team, those three things together, then start disseminating information. And since they have the media on their side, that disseminates through major media. And if you tell people something enough, they start believing it's got to be true, because we keep hearing this is so, but it's not necessarily so. But you get a lot of information. So I said, much of this misinformation comes from the defense and is filtered through the media and certain supporters, because it's not necessarily true information. It's information that they're putting out. He's innocent, and he's innocent. They did this, and the police did that, and this was wrong, and this is what somebody saw through a window, and they have all this stuff coming out. But you're not able to analyze the validity of this. So there's a lot of people just say, somebody said that the police officer saw somebody moving around in the house. Okay, where did you get that information from? Under what circumstances did you get that information from? How valid is that a piece of information? If you don't know and you're just going to take it as a fact, well, then you say the guy's innocent because somebody was alive in the house when he was standing outside. That's how you start getting manipulated. So then he wrote back to me, I think it is wrong to automatically reject any evidence that comes from a defense team in a murder trial or appeal preparation as misinformation. There have been many cases where an innocent person has been wrongly convicted. That is true. Not many cases, by the way. There are cases. And it is contrary to every principle of fairness and justice to automatically reject all evidence that favors the defense as misinformation. If someone is wrongly convicted, they should have the right of appeal, and the evidence should be examined by an appeals court. Okay, this is what I wrote back. Let me state, firstly, everyone has the right to appeal, whether they are rightly or wrongly convicted. So right there, you have the right to appeal even if you're guilty as hell. It's your right. So it doesn't matter if you're guilty or innocent. You have the right to appeal. And then it's up to the appeals court to determine if there is merit. So he's saying that, we should review every piece of this information. Well, the appeals court is the one that does that. And if they think this stuff is junk, he's not going to get an appeal. The defense has the right to submit their claims to the appeals court, and I will leave it to them to determine whether any of these claims have any merit. So far, as a profiler in the Bamber case, I have not seen great merit in the claims, and I would reject the appeal if I were on that appeals court. But that's just because I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and they might be seeing more. What the defense is doing is similar to many other defense teams of high-profile cases. This is what happens after years go by. First of all, the original witnesses a lot of times are dead, so you lose that. Then you find new witnesses. And it's always interesting about these new witnesses. The new witnesses always remember things they didn't remember 10, 20, 30 years ago. And that's because defense teams are very good at drawing out from a person information or getting them to believe they're giving information. They're manipulating them. And if they can get them to say, maybe this, I'm not sure, I thought I saw something. And then, okay, he says he saw something. No, he didn't actually say that, but that's where you are now. So they look for witnesses, tons of witnesses, to get these new witnesses that now they say these things are true. Then they also find, here's another thing to do. They scan every police report and look for any discrepancy which may have value. which is fine, or it doesn't really have any value, but they can misconstrue as new information. And so the people from the outside go, well, they've got all this new information. Interesting enough, I believe he says, how many pieces of new information do they supposedly come up with? Like 30,000, something absolutely huge. I'm trying to find out the number, but it was a crazy number of new, quote, new information. And believe me, there's not going to be 30,000 pieces of information. But the thing is, when a police department has to do due diligence, for example, they may have to talk to the psychics that call in. That's a piece of information. Phone calls. They got 700 phone calls from psychics. That's part of the information that they say, oh, that hasn't been shared. Well, there's no reason to share it. It's junk. Some pieces of information are just scraps of paper where somebody wrote down, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be back at 1. That's one policeman to another. That's not really information, but the defense will claim it's information. So the defense will say, oh, there's thousands and thousands of pieces of information that were withheld from the jury, withheld from the public. So nobody can know the truth about this case. And that's something else they do to make it look like he's been denied an appeal because, that it's wrong. He's being wrongly denied an appeal because there's all this new information. And the other thing that's done is they will find a few pieces of information that they can really push to the public, to the media, and to the appeals court, which may again, not have any true merit, but it just makes people go, They have, in the Bamber case, they have a supposed police call. They claim it's from the father. I don't see any validity in that. I think it was a note that was written down. I think it was a repeat of the other note. I think somebody wrote it down. The time was different. They didn't have computers there, and they didn't have phones. They probably just glanced at his watch or the clock over there, whatever. So this is one piece of information, and now it's being held up as this is proof the father called the police first. So therefore, Jeremy Bamber didn't make up the father's phone call. So if the father called the police first, then it wasn't Jeremy. See, that's very simple. If the father never made the phone call to the police, and the father only made a phone call to Jeremy to claim, and Jeremy's the only one who says, Dad called me and told my sister had gone amok with a gun, then you can question Jeremy lying about father calling him. And there's no evidence that his father ever did call him. And the phone call is silly. But if the father really did call the police station prior to calling Jeremy, well, then you do have a true issue. Because if he's calling the police station saying, my daughter's gone amok with a gun, then you can say Jeremy may have been railroaded. But that's the question about these things. They mix these things, and they're very clever about how they put it out. And then everybody goes, oh, my God, see, the father called earlier, so he's innocent. But, the appeals court is looking at the same information going, yeah, we're not buying this one. and the other big one that they're going on about now is that somebody saw a curtain move, and supposedly a light came on the house, and they saw a figure. People writing notes. There's clouds coming by, and the clouds change the shadows on the house. A curtain could move for a number of reasons. Even if there's not an animal in the house, it could be a cat moving a curtain, or it could be that the curtain was pushed up onto a chair, an edge of a chair, and it was already slippery and it was starting to slide. And then by the time somebody looked in the window, the curtain went like this, and then it looked like somebody had moved the curtain. There's maybe a bunch of innocent reasons why certain people thought they saw something in the middle, at that point in time, under a lot of duress, a lot of people chatting, a lot of stuff going on. Doesn't mean it's true. And what they're doing is they're putting the evidence, quote, evidence out to the public and the media as if it is fact. It's not fact. It's conjecture based on something they want to make into a fact. And that is going to the appeals court, and the appeals court is going, yeah, we're not going with that one. And also, the appeals court is looking at the totality of the evidence if they're doing it right. And they're saying there's so much evidence here In other words, you're trying to say these things prove everything wrong. But over here is a huge amount of evidence that we're going to stay with. Because we're not buying everything you're trying to come up with. And the defense team has so much money that they will work overtime just looking for any kind of weird anything to get an appeal. And do you know why they want the appeal? Martin says the curtain moving stuff sounds like something out of a Hitchcock novel. Narrative building. Yeah, I mean, it could have been anything. And people in general are lousy witnesses, including the police. I mean, they think they see something they didn't see. They guess, they imagine, because some may say a shadow or whatever. But this is what the defense does so well. They don't even have to believe that any of this stuff is true. All they want is one thing: to get an appeal. And all you need sometimes is super pressure from the media and the public. And an appeals court at some point goes, let them have the appeal. I mean, theoretically, we're going to say that's not true, that they're not swayed by public opinion and the media. Don't believe it. Everybody, they're political animals too. So what happens is at some point, they may feel like, okay, somebody there, if you ask enough times, you might get different people who are going to analyze things. And somebody might say, okay, there might be some discrepancies here. Maybe the police should have done a better job and they shouldn't have withheld this from the jury, even though it was meaningless. Let them have a second trial. If the defense gets that, they can cross their fingers like they did with the David Bain case and hope they get 12 people who ignore all the evidence because they're not actually presenting any new evidence. In the David Bain trial, they didn't present any great new evidence. I didn't see, and most of it was stupid stuff, but that jury let him off. Now, the first jury might have let him off too, but they got unlucky on the first jury and they got lucky on the second jury. So it's kind of like, it's a crapshoot when you're talking about juries. So a defense team knows if they can just get that, they can get a chance. Now, here I have a question for you. So let's say there's going to be a second trial on Jeremy Bamber, and you live in the UK. They say to you, let's say you think he's innocent, and you're going to be part of the jury. They ask you, how much do you know about this case? And you're like, that guy was railroaded, man. I know he's innocent. You go, not much. Even though you've been studying it for the last 30 years and you've seen every single show on Jeremy Bamber, you've read the entire defense reports ever coming out, all the media stuff. You're walking in ready to let that dude go. You're ready. You can't trust the jury system because almost everybody knows about big cases. They're not living under a damn rock. So every time I see it, 12 people say, I don't know anything about this case. I'm like, you're lying. You got 12 liars in a row. There's no way you don't know about this case. So it frustrates me. Oh, you don't ask that question? Wow. Interesting. Lisa says, I don't think juries get asked any questions in the UK. We don't in New Zealand. That is fascinating. In the US, they always ask you how much, do you know too much about this case? Do you have any feelings on this case? And I always laugh because most of the time they're going, oh, no, I don't know anything. And, I'd love to see their computer searches, But if they don't ask, let's say they don't ask, which is even almost worse, then how do you know you're not getting an entire jury full of, I believe Jeremy Bamber's innocent before they walk into the courtroom? Well, or did the David Bain people? I mean, that jury some of them didn't even seem like they cared what was being said there. They were all ready to find him not guilty. And they're all huggy afterwards. Oh, good. So I'm going to say maybe they knew stuff already. They'd already studied it. But they didn't study the court case. They studied the defense case. And the defense case is so manipulative. And that's why I cannot get people to understand sometimes. So manipulative. And people, that's when they get angry with me. It's like they come on to my page. Now, this gentleman here, I will give him credit. He was respectful, very strong in the Jeremy Bamber is innocent point. Did not think I'd done enough. He disagreed with me in certain things, but at least he was polite. So I'll give him credit on that. So I did not ban him from the channel because when people come on and call me an idiot, then they get banned. But people come on, they're so upset. How can you How can you say you're a professional profiler, but I've been looking at this case for the last 20 years, and you look like you looked at it for 20 minutes, and how could you come up with these ideas? And you're completely wrong. Don't you know about all the new evidence? Don't you know that she lied? Don't you know this? Don't you know that? I'm like, no, I'm looking at the evidence. I'm going to tell you what the evidence says. But they will say I've misinterpreted the evidence, and that the prosecution is misrepresenting the evidence, and that the defense team has now proven in the court of public opinion that that he's innocent. So they will believe the quote evidence of the defense, but not the quote evidence of the prosecution. So it's very interesting, and they say the first thing they try to do is say, well, you can't be a real profiler because I'm a layperson and I know way more than you. I'm a layperson and I know that he's innocent. How can you as a profiler say he's guilty if you're not an idiot? So it's a very volatile subject because the defense team and the media have so much impact on people's thinking. And they don't care about the truth. They don't care if they misrepresent. That's the purpose of what they're doing. Just like they try to basically pull the wool over the jury's eyes, they pull the wool over the eyes of the public and the media. And so, you cannot trust what comes out of there. So I'm just saying, well, it's interesting that the appeals court simply will not give him an appeal. So why is that? Is it because there is no evidence? And all I hope is that they're a very strong team, Jerry Bamber's innocent team in UK. And I just hope that some appeals court doesn't finally just say, okay, whatever, And then, then he comes to court and he looks like this nice older gentleman because he is now an older gentleman. And, people say, well, I've talked to him and he's such a great guy. You got nothing to do in prison all day long but learn every trick in the book on how to get over on people. You weren't so bright when you were 20, but you're a lot smarter when you're in your 50s. So then you can play everybody and you come across as the nicest guy in the entire world. And people can't look you in the eye and say, my God, this guy's a killer when he's so nice. So it's really, really a big problem. But I just thought that was a really kind of interesting thing that I saw when I had my stuff up there. So, and I knew when I did the show, I'm going to get a lot of hate mail because, if people have such a strong belief in certain things, and if you can't say, hey, that's not what the evidence shows, or we don't have enough evidence yet. And hold on a second. Somebody just wrote me about Dion Kuntz and the phone call mom made, and they had their viewpoint on the phone call. And one of the things she said, Martin says, that show certainly provoked a reaction. Yes, it did. It's not a good way to get subscribers. But I want to point out something somebody said about the Dior Kuntz case, that Jessica, his mom, when she made the 911 call to say her son went missing in the national park, she thought that the mother sounded like she was guilty. And one of the things she pointed out, I thought was an interesting one, was that she had said when the operator asked about the clothing he was wearing, she said, what clothes is he wearing? And the operator did say is, and Jessica said, well, he was wearing. And that set off red flags. He was wearing. And so this person, knowing the concept of, parents of missing children, if they didn't kill them off, usually talk about them in the present and never the past because they're still alive to them. But oftentimes, if they have killed their kid off, they talk about them in the past. We see that with the Summer Wells case. Both mom and dad talked about the child in the past. She was a wonderful girl. But I want to point out something different and I'm not saying Jessica and her husband could not be guilty of doing something to the son. I say so far I've not seen the evidence of that. And I do know he was alive when he got to the park. He was alive in the park. Either something happened there and it was covered up, but I can't figure out how they covered it up in that location that they were in, or somebody, a bear took him away, or somebody really kidnapped him, which is unlikely. But my point was, I did not catch them in things. I didn't see those things. And she was pointing out, she said, well, how did you miss this? because she said he was wearing instead of is wearing. And this is an interesting point, because is it a red flag? And this is why I talk again about totality of information. It could be, but then again, a lot of people would have said was wearing. And why would they say was wearing? Because since she last saw him, sometimes from the moment you last saw them. So somebody says, so your daughter went to school this morning. Yes, she did. And she didn't come home. No. What is she wearing today? Well, she was wearing, she was wearing, when she went to school, she was wearing this. It's not an unusual statement. That's not the same thing as saying, my daughter was a wonderful child, and she was a great pianist, and she had lots of friends. Well, you might say she had lots of friends. See, there's a point. Does your daughter have a lot of friends? And you say, my daughter had a lot of friends. Does that mean you think she's dead? Or is it just the point that she ain't playing with her friends right now? She's in somebody's basement being raped and murdered. So she had a lot of friends up until this point when this all went wrong. That's different than saying she was a wonderful child. Well, why wouldn't you think she's still a wonderful child? Because that has nothing to do with where she's at now. It just, she's still a wonderful child. She's maybe being abused, but she's a wonderful child. But you could say she had a lot of friends because she no longer can be with those friends. So you might mess up on certain things. When I say mess up, I mean by saying it's not really a mess up. It's just the way you might state something. So there's times when you can say everything that parent is saying leads me to believe they think that child is dead, dead, dead. Then there's things where a tiny little thing like that, you go, okay, note it. So my point is you always want to note things, but don't make an entire judgment based on, she said was wearing. Don't make an entire judgment on that, because this is where people go into bunker land because that one thing about that person they don't like. And then they say that person's guilty as hell. And they go on and on about how that person's guilty when it's only because they didn't like the way she smirked. They didn't like the way she smiled. They didn't like the way she didn't speak up enough. And every parent in these situations, you can accuse everybody of everything. Now, there are some times when enough of the information builds where you start saying, this is questionable now. There's too much in this court. There's too much saying the parents were involved. There's too much saying they weren't involved. You want to get a totality of evidence, enough stuff where you start going, okay, I'd be looking over there. Again, not necessarily guilt, but I'd be looking over there. And sometimes there are things that just don't make sense. In the Summer Wells case, the statement the mother made about the child going into the house and disappearing within seconds within the house, and she goes downstairs and knew she was gone. Well, why would you freak out and say she was gone when she could have just gone out the door and gone around the house to the swing set? It was like it was too short a time, and it was too overly, the reaction was too crazily big. So that was two big red flags. And all together with the other evidence, it's hard to believe that Summer Wells was kidnapped. So that if I were the profiler on the case, I'd be telling the police. If I were working on it, I'd say, look, there's a whole bunch of evidence here that shows that it's likely that Summer, nobody else was involved with this. The dogs never barked, and they're barky little suckers. In spite of the fact the family says they aren't, lots of barky little dogs, a lot of them. And the time frame is too small. The reaction was too big. She talks about her child in the past, and she's got a huge history of a lot of other issues. And the grandmother is acting weird too. So, there's a lot of reasons to look in that direction. And I would say 90%. But I would keep the 10% open in case I'm completely wrong. You want to look and make sure that nobody snuck up on their own property for some freaky reason. And everybody, it's just lots of weird stuff happens. And gosh, somebody did actually take the kid. So you don't want to throw it away, but you definitely wouldn't want to waste 90% of your time over here when actually it should be over here. So Lisa says, you might pick up subscribers because you handled the Bamber reaction so professionally. I saw people admiring your integrity. Oh, that's nice. It's just, whenever you go into doing anything publicly, whether you write a book, You go on TV, you do YouTube. You just always have to say, well, that person doesn't like me. You cannot get 100% great response, no matter what, unless you say nothing worthwhile. I mean, if you're just, some people I know talk about true crime, and they do this very nice narrative of the case, and they don't say anything controversial one way or the other. They just go, oh, this happened and that happened. And it's fun to listen to them, and they've got no big opinion. So it's easy to like them, and it's hard to dislike them. I'm sure they still get people who dislike them, like, I don't know why you have your hair that way, or whatever. You're not going to get 100%. But the more opinionated you are, the more you're going to run into some kind of trouble. So, most of my books have, it's kind of funny when you look at books. If your person's sitting like right in the middle, they write something, let's say political, they write something about whatever, for me, about profiling or about how to save your daughter's life on one of my books. A lot of times you end up in the middle. It's like you got people who really like you and people who really hate you, and so you end up with like a 3 stars, 3.5 stars, 4 stars. But rarely do you end up with the 5 stars, unless you say nothing that offends anybody. So it's just the way it is, and you just get used to it. That's all it is. I've been around for 20 years. I mean, if I'm not used to it by now, this is what I always say about Silence of the Lambs and what's her name? Now I'm going to forget her name. Okay, the girl, Clara. What the hell is her name? The girl in Silence of the Lambs, the FBI agent. What if I blanked on her name? Somebody give me her name quick. Somebody give me her name. The lambs are bleeding. What what is her name? Why can't I remember? I'm going to have to, okay, now nobody's telling me. So now I'm just going to have to sit here and go on my computer, look up the stupid name of that woman. Silence of the Lambs. What is her name? How can I just not know that? Okay, Silence of the Lambs. I'll never know when Alzheimer's comes. I never remember anything anyway. Clarice. Okay, it just came to my head. Clarice, okay. Silence of the Lambs, one of the funny things about Clarice, to me, is that she goes in, I would have fired her really quick because she has too many emotional problems. And you cannot, Clarice Starling, thank you, Starling, Clarice Starling, that's right. I have a, but if you haven't seen it, I did a video on Silence of the Lambs, so you can go take a look at that. But the girl's unstable, and she has emotional problems. And if you can't deal with, they always say if you can't handle a fire, get out of the kitchen. There's a reason for that. It's not suitable for you. So if you've got really, if I'm going to get my ego a little, hurt every single time I do a video, I'm either going to have to be so milquetoast about everything. I'm going to have to say nothing of worthwhile in order to protect myself. I'm just going to have to say somebody's not going to like me. And they're going to say things to me. And, none of us going to go, okay. You have to have the right personality to do certain things. And so when I hear profilers, and this really drives me crazy, FBI profilers, they're not there at the scene. They are not there at the scene. They come in late, like I've always come in late to cases. And what you do is look at photos. And I'm sorry, but if you can't look at photos of dead people, you really are in the wrong business. And if you can't talk to a killer without getting all, oh, he got into my head, you're in the wrong business. I've talked to serial killers. They don't get into my head. I play the same game back because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be analyzing them and getting information. I'm not supposed to be going, oh my God. Nobody's going to tell me, Pat. I don't have any lambs, so they're bleating. Okay, Pat, your pig is oinking. Because I had a pig for 20 years. Okay, your little piggy's oinking. Oink, oink. I never got over my piggy dying. Okay, I'm in the wrong business. Maybe I should do something more peaceful. So I would have fired Clarice right up front. I think a lot of profilers and these movies present people who are at a distance as having so much to deal with. Because people ask me that all the time. Oh my God, how do you deal with things, Pat? How do you deal with things? I'm like, I'm not at the crime scene. I know people who go to crime scenes. And when you walk in and you see a little child on the floor with its head blown away, or stabbed to death. If that doesn't affect you, you probably do have a problem, because that'll hurt you to the heart. And you will remember that. You will remember that. You're at the scene. You're at the scene. And I will tell you 2 instances where are still in my head. Well, 3 that I felt pain from dealing with. One was when I was in Jamaica, and I saw the guy who walked by our table got shot when he went out the door of the restaurant, and I walked out and he was laying there dead with blood around his head. First time I'd ever seen anybody dead like that. That picture is emblazoned in my head. But I had 2 experiences in the hospital working as a sign language interpreter. 3. And these are the ones that stick in my head. Now remember, I've done profiling for years. I've looked at, I don't know how many pictures of children murdered, women murdered, everybody murdered. I've looked at pieces of bodies. I've looked at really gross stuff. All kinds of horrifying things. These are the 3 things that stick in my mind. I was in the hospital, and there was a woman. I was inside one of the cubicles with my patient, who was happily talking to me because she couldn't hear what was going on outside. And outside was a woman, and she was jumping up and down, and she was screaming, "Mama," like this, "Mama, Mama, Mama." And she just went up and down and up and down. And I'm trying to like chit chat with this person, and all I can hear is, "Mama." I knew the woman had died, and the woman had lost her mother, and it still sticks in my head, that whole thing. The next one was seeing the body of a young woman who was T-boned. 2 girls were driving home from Gallaudet University to their little apartment or whatever. They're driving back to Gallaudet, and somebody went through the red light and T-boned them. And one of the girls survived. One girl survived without hardly a mark on her. She had some bruises and stuff. And then she said, "How is my friend?" And I went and I saw her friend. Her friend had not a mark on her body, but her friend was dead. Beautiful girl. She was naked on the gurney. She must have been 20. She was beautiful, but dead. And then her parents showed up, and I had to interpret, which sucked. And I still remember that girl, naked, beautiful, no mark on her body. Her liver had just crushed when she got hit. Sticks in my head. And the third one was a little girl. She was about 14, maybe 14, and they were going to unplug her mother from the machine. And she said to the doctor, which I had to sign, she said, "But if you unplug my mother, she will die." And the doctor said yes, and I had to say yes. And she goes, "But no, don't unplug her from the machine. She will die." And the doctor said, "But she's really like really dead now." And she goes, no. But if you unplug her from the machine, she will die. And her emotions stuck with me forever. Those 3. But I can look at pictures all day long. I can work cases, because this is a professional thing. And I'm not there at ground zero, essentially. And a detective who arrives at the scene has to see the decimation right in front of them, the blood, the smell, the ripped up bodies. That has an effect. Same thing is true for EMTs, ambulance people. They have to see that. So I'm sorry, profilers out there who want to write a book and say, "Oh my goodness, the serial killer is getting into my mind and having to see all these horrible crimes," that I never actually see, are just ruining me. It's bullshit, and you just want to make money. And it just pisses me off, because I have great respect for detectives who have to actually be at the scene. And that's pretty horrifying. And for the EMTs that see dead people at the scene. That's that. That's just, I have to say that because it just always annoys me, because I'm so yeah, my years in the hospital, I had more emotional connection to that than my years of profiling, because I was there when it was happening, when people were dying, and people's emotions were brand new. Lisa says, "Will you do more TV reviews? They were fun." Yeah, I will, Lisa. I have actually. I'm ready to do The Mentalist. I've got that one. I got to get that one done. And unfortunately, some of them I looked at and I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do something," and then I didn't do it, and now I can't remember it. That sucks. I'll have to watch it again. Yes, I'm going to. I've been waiting for, shall we say, freedom, because I've been watching my granddaughter for a year and a half, and now she has gone to school. So much as I love her, and now she comes after school sometimes and spends time with me, I'm not doing the 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. and having to homeschool her all day long. So finally, I'm not doing that. So I have the time back. So I'm hoping to put more content up, because I have the time back. That's why I can do the Hangouts, so I can do the Sunday things now. And I want to start adding more material during the week, some movie stuff, and my profiling school, where people can come and learn about profiling and about psychopaths and about forensic pathology and serial killers and all that stuff. Shorter, not live things about each one of the subjects. So I'm hoping to do that, but I was waiting for fall to come, and fall is here. So I'm just waiting for, like, it'll be like, oh, look, everything, I've got my freedom. And then they'll close the schools down for 10 days and because somebody had coronavirus, and I'm like, oh man. Okay. But any last questions before I sign off for the day? Are you, any last questions? I'm going to have my drink, which, this one, I would say this is soda, but you just can't see it. That's really red wine. This is a very nice Chianti, and I have some body parts here to have it with. Hold on. Ooh. Let me just see if anything. Let me see if anybody sent anything in. I don't want to miss stuff if people send things in. So, Martin says, "Do you ever finish the whole drink?" Yes, I do, but after the show. It's a hard thing when you're doing a show live, because it's, you're focused here. You're not, like, really getting a chance to drink your stuff. So yeah, I do. So when I finish the show, it's 4:00. I'll get a little snack, and then I'll relax and watch something like Chopped and see people cook or something like that. Lisa. Oh, that was a great question. For next time, I'm interested to know, I forgot to do your question, Lisa. I'm interested to know if there are any of your old cases that you would change what you did if you could go back in time. I did see the question, and I was starting to think about it, because it was a really tricky question. And I'm trying to think if there's one in particular I can highlight. It's, there's certainly things I've done on television with pitiful information, or I said, I think this is going to happen. And then they're like, Jesus Christ, that didn't happen. Can I just take that off my YouTube page? I look like an idiot. I think there was one. It was a freaky case about a family that they got killed in Ohio, and it looked like something else, and turned out to be a serial killer doing like there. I got the flies again. See that land right there? And it turned out to be, I think, actually a serial killer, which was such a bizarre case. And so that was kind of like wrong. Yeah, Martin says, "Yay, the flies!" Let me tell you, we're on a farm, and there's cows over there. There's horses and donkeys and alpacas and llamas, and there's a cat door here, so things can come in, and there's animals in my house. So it's like, in the summertime, we have fly issues, and it's so annoying. But back to things that are changing. I'm going to, most of the cases I did, I really, I think that's what threw me when they asked the question. It's a great question. I don't offhand can think of, well, I really would have done that totally differently. And this is something, it's a great point, though, I want to make about that. This is the problem when you say, oh, the police screwed that whole case up. Like when you took it to Bamber case. Why didn't they do A, B, C, and D? Well, when they got there, first of all, I don't know how trained the guys were who were doing the Bamber case. When they arrived at the house, the son calls them and says, hey, my father said my sister's running around shooting people. They arrive at the house and all, like, ooh. I can't, Monday morning quarterback them because I don't know what they saw when they got to the house. I don't know what they thought they believed. I don't know what training they had. They may not have been well trained in mass murders, which is usually not much training in mass murders, if any training in detective stuff at all. So what they thought at that moment, I don't, they might have chosen to do certain things because at the moment that's what they had to deal with. And then you look back and you go, why didn't they? And so Annie Haley says, what's for dinner? I don't know. Are you buying? Because I don't have really anything good here. I think it's going to be I think I'm going to go for just a salad tonight. And some ackee. I'm going to put ackee in my salad. If anybody doesn't know what ackee is, that's a Jamaican fruit that tastes between eggs and nuts. It's a really tasty stuff. I'm going to put that on top of my salad. Very tasty. Ackee. And it costs about $10 a can. And it's really nice because you can go into the stores now. You can go to a Jamaican store or a tropical store, whatever it is, and you can go to right there on the shelf is a can of ackee. But when I was like 30 years ago, my kids were young. My family, I have an ex-husband who's Jamaican, wanted to have ackee as part of a dinner. I had to go to the Jamaican store only, and then I'd say, "You got some ackee?" And the guy go, "Yeah," and he'd pull out from underneath this counter, from the front counter only. It was never on the shelf. From the front counter, right here, Norwegian sardines. And you would give him the $10 or $12. Actually, it was $12 to $15 once upon a time. You give him $12 or $15, you take your can of sardines, and you go home, and when you open it up, ackee was inside. It was brought into Canada legally, and then they put a new paper around it that said fish, and then they bring it down to the U.S. because it was illegal in the U.S. because people used to think it's this fruit that pops open on the trees, and if it's not totally popped open, it can be poisonous. So I guess they were worried about the standards. Nobody ever died of it in this country, of it not being open, but it's just delicious. And so now it's still $10, but at least you don't have to buy it illegally. And I might have committed a crime. That may be the only suspicious, instead of drug deals, I was involved in ackee deals at, shady establishments. But anyway, what was I saying? I was talking about cases. Oh yeah. So going back in time, the problem is it's hard to know what we were thinking at the time because you're dealing with certain detectives. You're dealing with a bureaucracy. So when I went and worked on cases, there are different kinds of people you're dealing with, and you're trying to get information, and sometimes you're getting partial information. And so there's all kinds of things that happen. So looking back, sometimes you're not sure whether you're remembering things accurately as to why you dealt with this case in a certain way. And I can't remember some things. I just simply can't remember. I've got my whole hard drive now with all my cases on it, and I'm going back over them because I'm going to do these cases. I will do some of my cases for shows because they're really interesting cases. But sometimes I'm looking at the case going, "Oh, I don't even remember that happened," because it's been a long time. And then why did I decide to do that? What decision did I make there? So I'm really going to have to go through this. Lisa, I have not forgotten that question now. I just have to really figure out which one I can pick out that has some reason to talk about it. Not just, I'm not worried about making an idiot of myself because I think it's educational. When you make mistakes, you would like people not to repeat your mistakes. And we all make mistakes on cases, and and it could be for a number of reasons. It could be because we bought a line which we shouldn't have bought, or we analyzed evidence incorrectly. We just, for whatever reason, we thought it meant this and when it meant that. So I will look, and I will try to come up with a really good one that has some meat to it, so that but Lisa, it is a really good question, though. I like the question because I don't think many people talk about going back in time and looking at old cases and going, well, and that's, and one of the problems when I can present cases, for example, to the police department. And this is where I ran into problems. I used to do training for police in person. And I would come to the police department, and the night before we'd all hang out and have beer. Everything is great. And then I do my presentation, and I point out certain crimes and where it went wrong in a police investigation. And then I get sometimes later, they go, "Well, she just came here and told us what we did wrong." Now, it wasn't their case. I wasn't presenting their case. I was presenting another police department's case, but it still was like, and then she's just coming and telling us what we did wrong. And they kind of didn't like that, you know. I mean, they liked me, but they were a little offended by the fact that I was pointing out their mistakes. So the problem is, if you don't look at mistakes, you can't fix them in the future. You can't say, well, you know, we missed that whole thing because we thought a certain way. So somehow we've got to get over where we make errors and figure out how we can, in the future, do a better analysis or make a better choice and not let. Sometimes, for example, what'll happen is people will do interviews, but they'll decide not to, like interviewing people like the Jean Bonnet case. The first thing they should have done was shut that place down as a crime scene. Should have shut it down as a crime scene. Second thing they should have done was separate John Ramsey and Patsy Ramsey. Completely separate them. But the problem was, the mistake they made was they thought it was an abduction. And by the time they let them, they didn't shut down the house. They were going to sit around and, you know, wait for the phone call. And then the body was brought up from the basement. Now they go, shit, maybe we should have. But, you know, it probably didn't occur to them when they came in. I mean, you're talking about, you know, a wealthy couple and they're well educated and they have a lovely home and they look like lovely people. And they say, my God, my daughter's been kidnapped. Here's a note. Probably the first thing in somebody's head is not, I bet they're lying dogs. You know, I bet they wrote that note. Let's shut the place down as a crime scene. They should have, and they should have done it in a way that was just respectful. And that's the thing. You have to explain to people why you're doing stuff. Like, okay, I understand you're really worried. So what we're going to do is we need to separate the two of you and get your stories. Meanwhile, we have to do that because we have to make sure this is what you think, what you're telling us it is. We have to do that. Otherwise, later on, it can come and kick you in the butt and kick us in the butt. So let's say they had separated John and Patsy and they came up with really decent stories that didn't mismatch, and they looked through the whole house and nothing was contaminated. We might have a different ending. Could have exonerated the Ramseys, or it could have gotten them arrested. But maybe they would have at least known what the hell happened and not have messed it up. So, yeah, so that is, I mean, but you know, at the time, I don't know, it probably just never occurred to them that what they were actually looking at. And people get fooled because it's not, especially when it's something there, doesn't happen very often. You know, people think detectives work on cases and like every week they got a crazy weird case. No, every week they got a gang hit down here. And this guy shot his girlfriend in front of everybody. Most of the time, it's still, they got to do their investigations, but they're not usually thinking things like the Jean Bonnet Ramsey case. I mean, that is a weird case. Martin says they were too busy looking for a small foreign faction. Oh my God. Yeah, I think they might have been too busy doing that. Oh, goodness. Yes. So anyway, I'm really great. Glad you all got here. Okay. So Martin, okay, let me get this straight just at the end of the show here. I'm just trying to find out, where is everybody? I'm trying to get this is what I keep asking you guys to do. And I need you to do it. So I might just have to write this down right here, right now. Where do you live? Tell me, just write down where you live. You know, we can go with the country if you don't want anybody. You don't have to go with the location. Or if you want to go in the location of the country because your time zone, like East Coast, West Coast. I'm just trying to make sure that I give people a chance to get to these shows. And I mean, I'm dealing with, Christine, I do know where you live. Yes, I do, because I live there too. So that we have the, what time zone is that? Oh, and Carolina is in my time zone. So you're kind of, and now also you can tell me whether you work to a certain point, if you're like not available because of your work situation too. And Martin is UK. I did this for you, Martin, because I know you show up, and I'm like, what time is Martin getting up to hang out here? It's just or staying up. And Lisa's in New Zealand. Yes, Lisa's in New Zealand. And so poor New Zealand, you all got kind of screwed on me trying to get a show to you. Pink Lilacs is on my time zone. I think lilac is my time zone. Yeah, that's okay. My time zone. What do I say? Oh, Pink Lilacs also is also a Lisa. That's always funny because I know people from whatever's up here, and sometimes not even the same as what's on my what's on YouTube. So I've got so many names, I've just got completely lost. So yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how to here's my theory over time. As I get more people coming with Patreon, because I assume at some point with Patreon, if I get more people, there'll be more people coming to the Hangouts, and maybe, it'll get too crowded, and then I can break it into 2 Hangouts, and I can do one at this hour and one at this hour and accommodate more people's time zones. But, until it gets bigger, then I probably wouldn't do that. But, if it does get to the point where people are like, well, I never get to ask questions. She never answers my questions. But for now, it's good. But I do like to switch it around. So I have to figure out New Zealand. So what time is it in New Zealand, Lisa? Wait a minute, I gotta look at I got my phone. Okay, I can check. Let me see. So in New Zealand, there's my world clock. Oh, so 8:30 in the morning, right? Yeah, that's early. That sucks. 8:30. Okay. Are you a morning person? Or I wouldn't get up for this show at like 7:30 in the morning. I wouldn't. So I'm good. Yeah, I could 8:30 in the morning. Yeah, see, and people go to work, then they have the same problem. It's like, okay, well, it was really nice. It was in my time zone. Not early for me. Whoa, Lisa. Okay, you're a morning person. I hate morning people only because I'm jealous. I'm just jealous. I wanna get up. I want to get up early, and I haven't tried it for like 40 years now, and I think I'm just giving up. It's never going to work. So, but it sucks. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm just going to stay with I like getting up at 10 o'clock in the morning. I like to stay up till 2 in the morning and get up at 10 in the morning. And yeah, I just never been a morning person. And so, I can get up I when I worked for the hospital, I did 24/7. So they would call me at, 11 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I could do that irregular stuff, but just getting up every day at early time, still can't do it. All right. So coming up. So if anybody's still here from outside of these lovely people here, don't forget to go below. If you want to join Patreon, the Friends of Profiling with Pat Brown. Also, subscribe, share with your friends, and buy books. I know where you are, Annie. I know where Annie is. But see, Annie you get off at 2:45. So 2:45 p.m. See, I was surprised you made it. I just didn't expect that. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, that's really cool. So Sunday, I'm going to be talking about the smiley face killers. And here's the secret that you know before we go to Sunday, that I am a suspect in the smiley face killers. This is true because it's on the internet that Pat Brown has been shielding this group of feminist smiley face killers. So you see how those little stories get going? So I am one of the smiley face killers. So anyway, it's gonna be an interesting show. I'll be talking about the theory of the smiley face killers, which in 2019 became a series on Oxygen. It's Oxygen Channel again, because they put out some questionable stuff. And I'm also going to be talking about the death of Chris Jenkins in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because I worked not with the police department, but I worked with the family on that case and the private investigator on that case. So I was heavily involved in that case. And so after the fact, and then I got connected to the smiley face thing, and part of it's my fault, but a lot of it's the media's fault because they misquoted me as usual. And so what I said didn't come out that way. And so it was misconstrued. And I also have a very interesting part of the thing I'm going to talk about on Sunday, where I communicated with a man who was a suspect who wanted to be the next Jeffrey Dahmer. And I posed as a 14-year-old boy and engaged him in conversations in a site called menunderwater.com. So I posed as a 14-year-old boy who liked weird stuff. So anyway, it's a very interesting. The Chris Jenkins case is still unsolved. Very interesting. I do have I do have an analysis of the case and a profile of the case. I'll also be talking about the. I'm going to think of a good name to use for the creepy dude who wants to be Jeffrey Dahmer. Maybe I'll call him Jeffrey Jr. And then also the smiley face killers. What the hell where is this concept from? Is it true? Is there such a thing as a gang of the smiley face killers? So it's going to be fun on Sunday. It will be at 3 p.m. on Sunday. So I look forward to all of you being there, and it'll be good. So I will see you next week, probably be evening again. But I'm going to try to move it around so that everybody gets to come. So glad you're here today. And all right. So Martin, I'm going to go drink this stuff. And I'm going to relax. Glad you're here, Christine, Annie, Lisa, and the other Lisa, and Martin and Carolina. And did I miss anybody? So good. You're all so much fun. So I'll see you hopefully on Sunday. And if not, next week. Bye.